If you've ever wanted to make your fire team forget they're in a GM because nothing can kill them because the enemies are too busy trying to decide whether or not they actually like the situation you put them in, and then they only remember as soon as you're not right next to them and they die because enemies can actually shoot them again, this is the build for you. Hey Titans, how you living? So, hey, your prismatic subclass exists, huh? Hey, your build options are not great on that one, huh? So why don't you and me just ignore that giant can of worms for now and talk about an entirely different build that's focused on putting enemies up instead of down. Our build today is set up around Abeyant Leap, which both juices up our Drenger's Lash and gives us Woven Mail whenever we suspend a target. We're obviously putting on Drenger's Lash for this build, but we're solidly in the territory of suspending enemies and getting Woven Mail. As previously mentioned, we're going to want to be on Drenger's Lash, so scoop that up. Our second aspect is Into the Fray, since it plays into Woven Mail superbly, and we're going to be making tangles anyway, so we may as well. It's also the only aspect I really see us using on this build. Banner of War does exist, but it's there for an entirely different type of setup, and Flechette Storm is... For our fragments, we're rocking Thread of Mind for even more free barricade energy, since we're going to be shooting suspended targets a lot. Thread of Continuity is a given for increasing the potency of our suspend. Transmutation is going to give us even more consistent tangles, and Wisdom is going to give us more orbs, since we're not exactly running a slaying out weapon, but more on that later. We don't have as much choice in the ability department because we're on Berserker and not Prismatic, but we do get to choose our grenade and our class ability. We're going with Rally Barricade for this build because of the significantly reduced cooldown, which means we're almost never going to be hurting for class ability energy. The build does work with Tall Wall, but the cooldown is almost double that of Rally Barricade, and also Rally Barricade lets you actually shoot the stuff that you just strung up without actually having to move. And finally, we're throwing on Shock Grenade to maximize the amount of suspensions we're hucking out, as well as a backup plan for when we need to suspend a target but don't have anything else available. But again, more on those options later. For our stats, we're obviously taking Rezeal to the max, not only for the damage resist, but also for the class ability regen. After that, we're maxing out our Discipline for even more Shackle Grenades, and Strength is next, since Frenzy Blade, despite not being a main part of our build, is actually a pretty good tool for severing big enemies. For our mods, we're tossing on the standard Siphon Double Finder setup for our head. In the arms, we're rocking double bolstering detonation for even more Drenger's Lash barricades, and firepower for the occasional grenade orb. For our chest, we're rocking the standard triple resist setup. Legs, we're doing better already for some on-demand healing. Insulation for even more class ability regen, and Absolution to round out our regen package. So if you need scav, this is where you would put it. And finally, in our class item, we're rocking Special Finisher for the cash. Distribution, since we're going to get a lot of use out of our class ability near enemies anyway. And Reaper, because, let's be real, it's a staple of builds at this point. Jumping into the artifact, we're purely ignoring column 1. Column 2, we're taking Unraveling Orbs for our strand weapon, which is more foreshadowing. Vile Weave for even more utility with our tangles. In column 3, we're rocking Hold the Line, since this build happens to run a machine gun. And Disruptor Spike for even more potent sever on both our Frenzy Blade and Vile Weave. In column 4, we're rocking Flashover for those sweet defib bolts. Horde Shuttle, since our targets are going to be unraveled most of the time since we're rocking a strand primary. And finally, Gold from Lead for the ammo. In column 5, you can rock Particle Reconstruction if you're on a linear. Also, actually not that much great here, so I kind of tend to just leave it on. Feel free to use whatever. And finally, defib because Bolt Charge is awesome. Colon 3. However, it would be a giant mess to make a build all about suspending stuff and not use Wishkeeper. While bows do tend to be a little slower, Exotic Perk enables more damage and faster draw time versus suspended targets, and that doesn't care how we suspended them, just that they're up there. We're suspending basically everything in sight, so that's going to be active damn near 24/7. If for whatever reason you don't want to use the bow, the build does function without Wishkeeper, but let's be honest, it's way more fun to use it. In terms of how the build plays, this does tend to be a bit more of a throw everything on and use it style build, but there is more to it than that. As soon as you see a big group of enemies, slam down your wall and suspend everything in front of you. This gives you 10 seconds of woven mail and will prevent anything you didn't suspend from killing you. At this point, you can kind of just go off with your weapons freely until you're about to run out of woven mail, at which point you should grab the tangle that you have inevitably made and huck it at your feet, which gives you another 10-ish seconds of woven mail. Maybe it's slightly more because of how Into the Fray works, but functionally, it's 10 seconds. It's unlikely to get all of the uptime that we want on woven mail out of our class ability and tangles alone, which is why we have so many ways to suspend enemies. Use a barricade, and then if we don't have that back, we can huck out a jackal grenade, and then throw a tangle at our feet, and then maybe a hip fire shot from Wishkeeper. That sounds really complicated, and like it requires a lot of brain power. I assure you, it does not. Rally Barricade has such a small cooldown that with our ability regen package, realistically, you could just use it and tangles for all of the woven mail, but that requires a lot of brain power, and more importantly, a lot less opportunities to suspend the unstop that just spawned behind us 4 seconds ago that's about to wipe the entire team if we don't do something, but our wall's on cooldown for another 10 seconds, so you wipe and fucking die. On top of that, it's way harder to play with the minimalist setup than it is to play with something like this that allows for a little more freedom of ability use. And Frenzy Blade is also there, but it's a fine tool, especially on bigger enemies like bosses and champions. Just make sure you don't die before you actually land the Frenzy Blade. On top of all of that, your woven mail can be given to your teammates with Into the Fray, which can save their lives in a clutch moment, or even if y'all are just hurting for cover and need to rotate. So, is the build any good? Short answer, yeah. It's a little easier to pop off with in solo content where you can purely focus on your own rotation, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't actually play the build with that much thought 90% of the time. I'm basically just hucking out a source of suspend or woven mail as soon as the timer gets low. The build is actually not that great in low tier content, since suspending a target is rarely worth the time when you could just kill them. However, when enemies both 1, actually hurt, and 2, don't explode when you look at them too hard, the value of suspend and woven mail goes absolutely berserk. Value of suspend is ridiculous in the places that it's useful. It's a freeze that stuns unstops without extra effort. And I know that shatter stuns unstops, but this is slightly faster and therefore superior. Even if you're not using your ridiculous suspends to stun champions, just having that breathing room against a giant group of enemies or bigger targets is invaluable in keeping you alive, and with how often you're suspending stuff, that's a lot of breathing room. I think that's everything in terms of yapping about suspending targets and getting woven mail. Next week, tune in because we're going to be talking about a hunter build, not a titan build, where fists are better than guns. This is the part of the video where I do my shameless self-promo. If you want to join our Destiny community, you can join the Discord server in the link down below. I also have a link to my Twitch channel, which I actually stream on sometimes. I duoed a raid last week, so if you want to check out stuff like that, definitely drop a follow. I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.